Welcome back. This is the story of how I survived brain surgery, my whole journey with it. So, I've been doing these recaps at the beginning. I'll go through it really quickly. March of 2023, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor in my pituitary gland by my gynecologist. April of 23, I met with the endocrinologist at Johns Hopkins, decided I wanted to have surgery instead of medication. August of 23, I met with the neurosurgeon, talked about the surgery in detail. It was a surgery through my nose, 8 hours through my nose. September of 23, met with the ENT to evaluate the structural integrity of my nose. And then November 15th, I had brain surgery. And then I talked about my ICU stay, what happened in the hospital, some of the unexpected things, all the way up until about April, where I had my final post-op appointment of the year, and everything healed well. I didn't have any of the packing in my nose anymore. The surgery site looked good. So now I want to talk a little bit about some of the emotional challenges that I experienced with this whole process. So leading up to it, there's a ton of fear. And also, I don't think I ever mentioned, this condition is benign. It is not a cancerous tumor, and I don't think it ever would have become malignant. So that was another benefit. But so initially I was scared that this was cancer, but I was told pretty early on that it's not cancer. And then it's just how do I say this? It's just mentally accepting that you're going to have brain surgery, and you hope that you'll be the same person pretty much on the other side, because I've heard of stories where people's personality have changed, and they just didn't really seem like the same person. So I was worried about that. But in terms of the recovery, what I realized is, going into this, I kind of got into this survival mode type of mentality, where all I was worried about was physically surviving surgery. All the emotions and stuff, I'll deal with that later. It's like they were locked up in the back of my brain behind some door, and it was just kind of hidden for a while. And so once I had surgery, and then I was dealing with the physical recovery, that's what I was pretty much focused on. And then once I was pretty good physically, and I was out of the woods in terms of having an infection or any kind of complications happening, I kind of started to experience this false sense of being further along with my recovery than I really was. I mean, I was on cloud nine. I was just like, wow, I had brain surgery, I survived, I was traveling. I went 8 places last year. Like, I traveled 8 different times last year. One, I went out of the country to Mexico with one of my girlfriends. I went to Houston for one of my other girlfriends' bridal weekends. Did another girls trip. Like, I was outside. I was like, nobody can tell me anything. I done made it through this. I ended the year kind of on a rough note. I had an awful Thanksgiving. Not in terms of the pain that I was in, not because of the people around me and stuff, but it was just so painful. The Christmas, like, it was just, the holiday season was very rough for me in 2023. So 24 came, I was like, you know what? I'm about to make the best of this. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I did. And I don't regret any of it. But what I realized later was, all of those emotions that were kind of behind that closed door when I was just focused on physically surviving the surgery, once I got out of the woods in terms of physical stuff, it's like that door opened and all of the emotions just flooded out. And I was not prepared for it. You talk about anxiety. It wasn't the first time in my life that I experienced anxiety, but it was the first time I experienced it on that level. I started really getting caught up in these thoughts of, what if this tumor comes back? What if it's cancerous? What if I have to have surgery again? I think I mentioned in a previous video, they took out 1/3 of my gland along with the tumor, because my tumor was behind the gland. So they had to cut through the gland, take that piece out, then take the tumor out. So I'm like, well, if this tumor comes back and they have to take out more of the gland, then once you get to a certain point of only having a certain amount of your gland left, then you have to take medication to supplement what your gland can't produce, with that little amount. So I'm like, then I'll have to get on medication, which is what I was trying to avoid in the first place. If I get to that point, I should have just started out with that and not had the surgery, So then those thoughts just kept going and kept going. And then I started having nightmares of not being able to wake up. Because going into surgery, the main thing I was telling myself is, all I have to do is go in here and wake up afterwards. They're gonna put me to sleep. I just gotta wake up. Whatever happens, I'll deal with it as long as I am awake. So when I started developing this, when I started having nightmares, it was like I was dreaming that something bad was happening. And in the dream, I knew that I was dreaming, and I was telling myself, Adri, wake up, wake up, wake up. And I couldn't wake up. And then when I finally did, my eyes would like get open really, really wide. And I would lean up in bed, like jump up in bed, and I would be like drenched in sweat. My heart would be racing. And, I'm just sitting up there in the dark, like so scared. I woke up crying sometimes. And then I kind of started having a fear of going to sleep, because I'm like, what if I don't wake up? So the emotional toll is probably more difficult to deal with than the physical, because at least with the physical, it's painful and it's uncomfortable and all of the above, but at some point it's going to stop. It is, you're doing what the doctors tell you, your body is healing, you're taking care of yourself, you're giving yourself the best environment to heal, eating well, resting, you're doing all the things. It will end. You don't necessarily know when, but it's going to be relatively quick on how, like, your body heals pretty quickly physically, but when you have to deal with the mental aspect, the anxiety, you have no idea where the end of this road is going to be. If you're going to get there, it's just like, it's very much up in the air. And so I started struggling with that aspect of it. So what I ended up doing was going to therapy, and I'm still in therapy, and highly, highly recommend it. If you are having this operation, really any surgery, but obviously this is focused on brain. If you're having this type of brain surgery, or if you're having a craniotomy, whichever kind you're having, I highly recommend you put therapy as part of your recovery plan. You should absolutely have a recovery plan in place, and it should include therapy. If you end up not needing it, cool, but anticipate needing it. And the thing is, sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. For me, it was months after. I told you, I was on this high. I was traveling. I was living my life. I'd gotten into public speaking. I used to be terrified of public speaking. Right before I, even got diagnosed with this tumor, I joined an organization called Toastmasters. And this is not me being like a spokesperson for them. This is just, my experience. And I joined Toastmasters the month before I was diagnosed with this tumor. I was going to quit. And then I just said, you know what, let me just stick with it for another month. And I kept sticking with it. Absolutely love it. And this whole brain surgery experience gave me something that I was passionate about to talk about at my Toastmasters groups. And it really helped with my confidence talking in front of people. So, but yeah, so Toastmasters was going great. I was like, where was I in the story? Toastmasters was going great. I was doing public speaking stuff at work and volunteering for presentations to get in front of people. I was just like, nobody can stop me except me. And again, that's when the anxiety came. And, so for me, it was months later that I started to really experience the emotional aspect of the healing process. And it's difficult. It is very difficult. So, anticipate that happening. And that's why I decided not to even share this story, like actually talk to the camera about it until now, because I was gonna put this out months ago, but I realized that I was really not in the place mentally to put it out and talk about it, because I would start talking about it and feel okay, and then all of a sudden, boom, the emotions would come. I would just be crying, and not that I don't want to cry, but I didn't want to come up here and just cry, you know. So I was like, I need to get to a place where I'm a little far enough removed from the actual surgery and some of the recovery before I get on camera and talk about it. So yeah, I'm in a much better place now, and you know what? Let's stop here, and then I'll do a wrap up for this whole, I guess, little series that this has become. So we'll stop there, and we'll wrap up the story on the next one.